Dulcimer Crossing Wednesday LiveStream. Today our topic is creating your own arpeggio etudes. Now, it's fun when you use these words because the language that gets used in music borrows from many different languages. Italian is the overall language for things. So we're looking at arpeggios today. Oops, I need to change something here. Sorry. I neglected to do this first. And we're going to save that. We're going to put it up here so you can see the title. Yay! Create your own arpeggio etudes. And I want this here so that you can see the language that's here. We've got arpeggio. Where does that come from? Well, that's Italian. And it comes from the word arpa, which means harp. And etudes. There. Now I have that in the chat so that we can see what's going on there. All right. So arpeggio means like a harp. And a harp, if you can imagine it, if you've seen one, if you haven't seen one, go look for a harp. Go do a Google search, but has a lot of strings. And if you're of a certain age, you think of Harpo Marx, who could play the piano or play the harp. But it takes all these strings that are tuned to specific pitches and you strum your fingers over them or you pluck them individually. And the technique of playing an arpeggio means to take a chord, which is 3 notes, the 1, 3, and 5 of any scale. So I'm going to say D, A, and F sharp, or D, F sharp, and A. Doesn't matter what order they are. But to play them as an arpeggio is not to chunk them like this. It's like a harp where you go. So we're going to talk about creating exercises that let us do this. And arpeggios are something that not just maybe dulcimer players don't talk about it as much, but it's one of those words that hangs around in the atmosphere, and a lot of times we don't know what it meant. I thought for a long time arpeggio meant broken, like a broken chord. You're not playing it all at once. You're not strumming it really fast. You're playing it one by one. Well, it is playing it one by one, but it comes from the harp language, not that anything got broken. So what I'd like to do is borrow something. My friend Deborah Morris recently said that Aaron O'Rourke is the one that opened her eyes and ears to this possibility. When you are having a problem in a piece of music, what you can do is create your own etude. Well, that gets us to the second word. Etude is a French word for study. So if I'm having a problem with something, but I create an exercise that I can work through whatever the issue is, that can be my etude. That can be my study. So one way to play an arpeggio on a mountain dulcimer is to play each individual string rather than strumming them. I can play so I was playing an arpeggio that started on the melody string and went to the bass and came back and touched the middle string. However, I don't have to play it in that order. I could start on the bottom. Or I could play on the bottom and then go to the melody. It's clearly not one I do very often. Ooh, I might give that one a name. What I did was start with a slant chord. I'm always starting on the bass string, and then I'm moving one string by a fret. I'm moving the melody string first, then the middle string, then the bass string. Now it's time to move the melody again. So part of what I'm doing here is very mechanical. I'm doing a very mechanical thing of moving things in order. I'm letting my right hand get the practice of starting on the bass string 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And I was doing a 3 pattern rather than a 4. I could do. Now, do I know exactly what I'm playing each time I move to a new fret? No. I don't necessarily know the names of those. That's why I call this a mechanical exercise. I'm taking as tight of a reverse slant shape as possible, moving one finger at a time and descending. I'm having to change fingers as the frets get further apart, but I create something that I really like hearing musically. And I have a pattern going on over here. So it's a study. I could give it a name. I could call this, and I could give it, in study in slant or something like that. Slant study, reverse slant study. I could do something like that. And I could start at the bottom and go up. I could reverse it. I could do it reverse. But what I'm doing is giving myself the opportunity to try a pattern. I'm hearing where everything is. So my ears are getting attuned to what happens when I move one thing and what happens when I move it in order. I do have a 6.5 fret here. I do have a 1.5 fret here. So it's going to give me a particular kind of sound when I get there. So I might call it a reverse slant arpeggio etude for 1.5 fret. It lets me hear that. I could create one going the other direction, but let's take a look at how we can do this on the hammered dulcimer. And good morning, Rusty. Sorry I didn't see you head in here earlier. Let me change my camera view. So my purpose for doing all of this is so that I can become better acquainted with my instrument, with the sounds that are made there, and my changing things so that I can apply them later. And I might have started, the impetus for my arpeggio could be because I had a problem, or could just be I want to try something different. So I play a lot in the D box. So I'm going to go to C for this. If I do 1, 2, 3. So I got 3 notes. I'm going to start lowering them. I'm going to lower the second note. Now the third note. Now the first one again. Now the second one. Now the third one. Now the first one. Now the second one. Now the third one. Now the first one. Now the second one. Now the third one. Oh, I did that in the wrong order. I moved the third before the second. Oh, that created a different kind of a sound. Ha ha ha. And I'm doing something that on a musical page would have a whole lot of eighth notes in it, and it would look very, very busy. And etudes often look like that. If you've played piano etudes, or you've played clarinet or trumpet or anything like that, they're studies to help you do something in particular. Like on a trumpet, if you have one set of fingering and you have a bunch of jumpy things, well, it's a lip exercise. You're moving to different pitches with one set of fingerings. If there might be a clarinet etude to help you cross over your break. Same thing for the flute. On the hammer dulcimer, what I can say is I want to be able to do I want to be able to play not just the first three notes of the chord, not just the first four notes of the chord. I want to be able to play now, can I do it in another place? Can I do it from the top down? Can I move the chord shape down? Can I move it down again? Probably gonna do better if I go up first. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. That's very interesting. Oh yeah, when I do that shape, I'm learning. I'm uncovering some things that I hadn't thought about before. That are some new options, which I think is deliciously confusing and helpful. Now, the reason I'm doing this, I'm creating my own arpeggios so that I can get used to where can I find certain sounds on my instrument. But like I said earlier, I don't know what they are. So I'm going to have to decode then. I'm doing it physically and mechanically, and then I'm going to say, okay, I started in my C box. That was a C chord. Oh, I changed my first note. That became a B and an E and a G. That's an E minor chord. And then I've changed my second one. Now I'm at a G chord. Now I'm at a B minor chord when I changed my third note. So here was my C, E, G. Then it was a B, E, G. Made me an E minor. Then a G, and then a B minor. And now it's time to... I've got a D7 that doesn't have a D in it. Ha! What else could I call this? A6. Now I've I've got an A minor. I got to change my, yeah. I've got an E minor again. No, I don't. I have an E minor add 2. Oh, it gets very interesting. Anytime you have 3 notes together, they create a chord, but what the name of the chord is depends on the relationship of the context. So I have 2 younger sisters. We were the Yulberg family, Steve, Amy, and Nancy. But sometimes we would sing together as a trio. And, that family blend of the harmonies is really cool. It was still Steve, Amy, and Nancy. We were still in birth order. I'm first, then Amy, and then Nancy. But when we sang in the trio stuff, we flipped it around, and I was usually the lowest pitch. And Amy Jo, who was in the middle, and Nancy was often on the top, or they would flip. So we were still the same people, but our relationship to each other changed vocally because I'm male, they're females, they have soprano and alto voices. All that stuff flipped, but we're still the same. We're still the same group. We might go by a different name. We might perform as the I don't know, trio, vocal trio, we could call it that, but it's the same components that are involved. But if we focus on me, it's like Steve and his sisters. If we focused on Amy Jo, it'd be Amy Jo and her siblings. If we focused on Nancy, it would be Nancy and her siblings. If we focused on Amy Jo and Nancy, it's like we have this duo with a third harmony. So the names of the chords change in the same thing. So I can call, you want to get really crazy? I can call this an E and a B. E, G, B is an E minor chord. If I play B, E, G, it's still E minor. If I play G, B, E, it's still E minor. Unless I want to call the G if I add the 5 in there and add the D, it could be an E minor 7 chord, or it can be a G6 chord. Now, if I pick one note out of the group to focus on, it shifts what name I might want to call the chord, and what name I'm going to choose is based on where are we in the music. Where do we come from? Where are we going? What key is it written in? What's going to make the most sense? And sometimes you'll be doing this and there'll be a literal kind of thing that shows up, which is very hard to process. It'll have some funky name that just doesn't make any sense at all, given the context of what you're doing. Or you might say, this feels like this chord in my hands, but I'm choosing to call it this other thing. And that's up to you. Of course you can do that. But the purpose of our conversation today is, if you have something that is difficult for you, you can create an exercise that could become a piece of music. That is something, it could become a performance piece. It is a study, but it becomes something you want to share with people, and it might end up being so musical that you really like it, and it might evoke some other thing, which is the experience I was having when I was doing this, as I was walking down, changing which order I walked down. So I had what a dream I had, what a dream I had. Smoky burgundy. I held your hand. I held your hand. And now I'm in a Simon and Garfunkel song. Just because I heard that one little thing, it was a motif that they used in one of their songs. That's very beautiful. Yeah, you could do a study in Scarlatti. You could do something that sounds like something else you struggled with once, and give it that name. But the point is that it gives you the ability to take apart what it's like when you really study something. You just take a look at it and see, does it have something written on the back? What's all the information? Is it engraved? Which way does it go in your arm? You take off something that's a piece of a tool that you use all the time, but then you study it. That's what an etude is. And you have a part in a piece of music that may be creating that kind of a question for you, and you decide to take it apart and study it. Then you can put it back into the piece you were working on, or you can create your own new piece, or you can put the two things together, this kind of a study and that kind of a study, turn this study upside down, and maybe it does something over there. It's about you using the things that are your stumbling blocks to become your launching pads. Now, I've been talking a lot. Why don't I just pause and see if you have anything that you want to mention from your own experience about that. Either from engaging in this process or from just thinking about it. Yeah, you end up exploring your music and your instrument. And you know what? Sometimes I bet you've had this happen, Rusty. You're working on something, and all of a sudden you find out, the clock has ticked. It's a half hour later, and you're not where you started. You got caught up in some kind of an exploration. And I call that exciting. I call it good when that kind of thing can happen. I would have students sometimes, particularly in hammer dulcimer, come in and say, I didn't practice my lesson this week. I got stuck just playing chords for 4 hours. It's like, oh darn. I hate when that happens, right? Because it's creating beautiful tones, and you can let the music just wash over you. And sometimes it has the fact that you get lost in the music is its own therapeutic instrument for you, because it lets you just get taken out of the daily whatevers. And that's how we can go on journeys and never leave our own house. So I encourage you to do that. My exactly. So Katie created this. It'd be really interesting to talk to Katie and say, how did you come up with this exercise? She has this 5-note diatonic scale exercise on the hammer dulcimer. It's the same kind of thing that could happen on the mountain dulcimer. And you have all these possibilities. And what it does is I'm focusing on this pattern. Can it take me there? I had a student yesterday who I said, what should we warm up on today on guitar? And so what she chose, she called it a box exercise. She called it a box exercise because she went from 3 to 4 on her high E string, and then she skipped the string, went over to the G string. And I said, what happens if we do that starting on the B string? What happens if we start on the G string, D string? Now, it may not sound musical to begin with. That's turning the same exercise upside down. But it could also become a thematic idea. And she's someone who likes to compose things. So she's trying this exercise. It becomes a tool in her belt. Then she said, I want to create a figure 8 exercise. So I said, okay, let's try this. So we created this exercise that has points on the figure 8. 3, 4, 5, and then 6 coming back around on the bottom. I have to change my finger position in order to get all the notes. Then I play 4, 3, 2, 1. And musically, it would not be what I'd think about playing. And I could draw my 8 this way, or I could draw my 8 the other way. But it was a mental, it's kind of like this pattern that Jim, you're talking about, Katie did. Her idea was, I want to create a finger exercise that's a figure 8. She did it on, we wrote it on these strings, but it could easily be moved over. You could do this figure 8 exercise. And what it does is get your fingers doing something, and it opens up your ear for what are other possibilities, because those are not the notes you necessarily would think about doing. Now, I had more data points because I have more strings to do that same idea, to do a figure 8 etude on the mountain dulcimer. I could do so it's like I'm drawing a figure 8 like this. It's a slant shape arpeggio. So it could also be called an X, or now that gets really involved, but it's based on this X and then adding these points up here on those two strings. Oh, and Jim, you're saying that the exercise she did was a standard choral exercise and adapted it to the hammer dulcimer. There you go. Borrow from every other place in your life, in your experience. That's good. Now move it down. That's with a 1.5. What if I don't have that? I had not thought about a figure 8 exercise on the mountain dulcimer. So now I'm thinking about it. Keep a positive 8 tude. I like. Well played, Jim. Well played. Well, friends, that brings us to the bottom of the hour and our live stream for today. Couple of things to. Oops. Couple of things I want to call attention to in the ad department. What's coming up? This is the week of the Quarantine Dulcimer Festival and the vendor night. I want to share my screen. Uh-oh. There it is. Okay. I want to share my screen, and I need to share Chrome tab is what I want to share. Yeah. Here is the registration is closed for the workshops, and over 10,000 workshop seats were sold for this festival. Just amazing. But we have all these different sponsors. Dulcimer Crossing is one of the sponsors of this festival. But if you go to this link here, you can not only see the sponsors, and you can write and thank them. This is a financial commitment on the part of all the sponsors, and that helps pay for everybody's workshop fees, pays instructors. The sponsor fees help pay for all the infrastructure that keep this going. Dulcimer Crossing, you can see, is linked here. Each one of these is a link to a Zoom room because, and that's what I wanted you to see there. I'm going to close that now. If you click on each one of these, tomorrow, Thursday, June 3rd, 4 to 6:30 p.m. Eastern, which is for me 2 to 4:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Click on any one of these, and you're going to be in the Zoom room of that particular sponsor. I'm the artistic director for the Berkeley Dulcimer Gathering. Deborah Morris and some others will be there to share some memories and things from that particular festival. We have these other different festivals. Kentucky Music Institute is a new online learning system, which is like Dulcimer Crossing. When Nancy called me when she wanted to release that, we obviously can't handle all of the teachers in the dulcimer world, and she wanted to highlight some others that we were not able to include. In this digital world, we can add some that we couldn't before, but having to have people come and film in my studio is a limit, right? So we have some builders, we have some musicians, we have some stores that provide information. Some of the teachers are sponsors. Some of the artists are sponsors. So, but I'll be in the Dulcimer Crossing room giving people a tour of the current site and our new site as well. And we continue to work on that to get this ready for our relaunch. And I'm talking about it a lot so that it's not a surprise when it happens. But the good thing is everybody's going to get access to a lot of cool stuff. And there is even better cool stuff for people who want to be involved at a higher level. So that's the first thing that's coming up. Now let's look at, and the concerts start tomorrow night too. There's one ticket price for all 5 concerts. There's over 70 performers. They start, and you can click on each one of these schedules to see who's playing when. And everybody gets a 10-minute set from start to stop. That's the hello to goodbye. And so that means it's very tight. Everybody doesn't get a whole lot of time to play. We have to choose either one long song or a couple or 3 shorts or something like that. That's what we're having to do. My particular slot will be in the afternoon of Sunday, June 6th, but there are different performers every night. Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, and 2 different sets on Sunday. There's a morning or an afternoon, and there's an evening time. So I'll invite you to come and join us there. If you're not already a part of the festival, how can you share this with the Dulce Prairie Dulcimer Club? There's 2 ways, Rusty. You can bring them here. Just this particular link, this video is archived here on Dulcimer Crossing. So the Facebook page, you can do that. You can also go to the 2 links that I'm putting in the chat and share those with the club. The concert tickets are that link, and the vending is for everybody. You don't have to have a ticket or anything. That's free. You don't have to have a ticket. You can just come and hang out, explore, get to know some people you might not know, talk to people that you do know. I'll be there. So come on by and say hi to me. If you have a particular question or you want to know something, I'll do my best to make up an answer for you. And I'm going to stop the share now so that we can be face to face. And thanks for your questions. Thanks for being here. We'll be back again next week with a new theme. As always, if you have ideas or things we can talk about in this topic, Jim, thank you for the ones that you share with me regularly. I've got a big long list of what I'm working through, and but you also might have an aha or a celebration that you want to share, and I'd love to hear about those as well, because they can be the jumping off point for someone else's growing understanding. But that's it for today. I'll sign off, and I'll get to work on some Dulcimer crossing things. I'll get to work on I'm really close. I've got 46 arrangements finished, and out of the 50 for my 51st tunes for the Hal Leonard book. And that's due like imminently. So I got to get to work, and it's good to spend time with you today.